Okay, let's just jump right into a pretty wild thought experiment. What if all the land on Earth just vanished? We're going to explore that exact question, and let me tell you, the answer is way more terrifying than you might think. Yeah, I mean, seriously, try to picture it. A world with absolutely no ground beneath your feet. Not a single continent, not one tiny island, everything just swallowed by the ocean. That is the crazy scenario we're diving into. You know, when you think about it, our planet is already mostly a water world. We've got water covering about 71% of the surface. So that leaves just 29% as land. And on that tiny little slice of the globe, well, that's where we built everything, our entire civilization. So what happens if that foundation just gets washed away? And let's be super clear about what's at stake here. That 29%, it's not just some number on a chart. It's everything. It is literally the difference between life and death for us. So how could something this catastrophic even happen? A great flood on a global scale. It sounds pretty much impossible, right? Well, this scenario lays out a chain of events that's chillingly plausible, and it all kicks off with just one single trigger. It all begins with heat. We're talking about a single, unrelenting global heat wave. One so powerful, it melts every single piece of ice on the entire planet. Think about that, from the tiniest glaciers all the way to the absolutely colossal Antarctic ice sheets. All of it just liquefies and pours straight into the oceans. So what's the immediate results of all that melted ice? Well, global sea levels shoot up by 70 meters. 70! To give you some perspective, that's as tall as a 23-story building. And we're not talking about a slow, gradual rise here. This is a sudden, catastrophic, planet-altering flood. And this isn't some far-off, abstract problem. A 70-meter rise means the world's greatest coastal cities are just gone. In an instant. New York, London, Tokyo, even Paris, all of them completely submerged, just wiped off the map forever. The human cost, it's absolutely staggering. This initial flood wipes out 1/3 of the entire population of Earth, instantly. We're talking billions of lives lost in what is essentially a single day. It's almost impossible to comprehend. And for those who somehow survive, well, for them, the nightmare is really just getting started. This flood isn't the end of it. It's just the first wave of a catastrophe that's going to lead to civilization being completely washed away. Yeah, society just unravels. It plunges into absolute chaos. Any attempts at organized evacuation, they completely fail. It just becomes a desperate free-for-all, with the survivors fighting each other over scraps of food, a bottle of fresh water, anything that floats. But, you know, in the middle of all that chaos, a really modern question pops up, right? What about our digital world? Would Wi-Fi still work? With everything falling apart, could you still get online? The answer to that question is kind of tricky, and it really reveals a hidden vulnerability we all have. See, above the water, the Wi-Fi signals themselves, which are just radio waves, they might still function. But the problem is everything under the water. All that physical infrastructure that makes the internet work, the undersea cables, the data centers, the cell towers, it's all gone, destroyed. Our entire global network would basically be reduced to just a handful of satellites and maybe some makeshift floating servers. So just when you think things literally cannot get any worse, they do. The initial flood is so massive that it triggers a whole cascade of other geological disasters. The planet itself starts to fight back, entering a new and much, much more violent phase. It's this terrifying domino effect, a total cascade of catastrophes. First, the heat wave awakens over 1 million underwater volcanoes. As they all start erupting, they release these unbelievable amounts of water that were trapped in the Earth's mantle. All that new water then triggers massive, planet-wide earthquakes. And what do those earthquakes do? They create towering tsunamis that just sweep across the globe, wiping clean any little bits of land that might have been left. And all that new water from the mantle, it creates a reality that's just unimaginable. The sea level doesn't just rise, it surges. The new level is 3.3 kilometers higher than it was before. At this point, it's game over for land. Every single continent on Earth is gone. And just like that, we have a world without land. Earth is now a true water world, but
This isn't some beautiful ocean paradise. This new planet is an incredibly hostile environment, and not just for us humans, but for pretty much every form of life.
To really get a grip on the scale of this, let's put it into historical context. Let's compare it to some of Earth's other really bad days. This global flood would kick off a mass extinction event that's right up there with the asteroid that wiped out the dinosaurs. We're talking about 70 to 90% of all species on Earth just gone. And here's the really cruel, ultimate irony in all of this. In a world that is nothing but water, the oceans themselves begin to die. See, with no land left, the seas have to absorb way more CO2 from the atmosphere. This turns the ocean water acidic. And what does that do? It literally dissolves creatures that have shells. Think coral reefs, clams, all that stuff. That's the very bottom of the marine food chain. So when it goes, the whole thing collapses, from the bottom all the way up. Not even the massive whales would be safe.
So the land is gone. The seas are dying. What's left for humanity? What does our final chapter even look like in a world like this? The end comes terrifyingly fast. I mean, within just 60 days, every single land-based ecosystem is history. Fast forward 2 years, and the few survivors are just huddled on whatever they could find. Makeshift boats, maybe some experimental subsea units. But within a single generation, the combination of malnutrition, new diseases, and just constant conflict has pretty much decimated what little is left of humanity.
But wait, couldn't we adapt? Couldn't we evolve to live in the water? It's a fair question, and there's actually a fascinating real-world example of this. The Bajau people in South Asia have evolved spleens that are 50% larger than average. This basically acts like a biological scuba tank, letting them hold their breath for an incredible amount of time underwater. That's amazing, right? But here's the catch. An adaptation like that takes countless generations to develop. And that brings us right to the heart of our problem. The simple truth is, even though our distant ancestors came from the ocean, we, Homo sapiens, we really only evolved for life on land. And that leads us to the grim, final verdict. There's just not enough time. We simply cannot adapt fast enough. And our own predisposition for violence, fighting over the last remaining resources, would almost certainly finish the job that the flood started. So this whole thought experiment, as wild as it is, leaves us with a really big question for our own world right now. As our planet changes, as we face our own challenges, what should our plan be? Do we try to adapt to a new Earth, or is the answer to